Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. The theme of the next session will be Leading to Survive and Thrive in Challenges. We present to you our speakers, Ms. Pullman Low, Vice Chairman and Managing Director of Regal Hotels International Holdings Limited, Mr. Laurie Piercy, Associate Vice President of Chinese University of Hong Kong, and Mr. Wang Siu Ki Kent, Managing Director of Chow Tai Fook Jewelry Group Limited, accompanied by session host, Engineer Edmund Leung, Deputy Chairman of Hong Kong IOD. Ladies and gentlemen, the theme of the next session will be Leading to Survive and Thrive in Challenges. We present to you our speakers, Ms. Pullman Low, Vice Chairman and Managing Director of Regal Hotels International Holdings Limited, Mr. Laurie Piercy, Associate Vice President of Chinese University of Hong Kong, and Mr. Wang Siu Ki Kent, Managing Director of Chow Tai Fook Jewelry Group Limited, accompanied by session host, Engineer Edmund Leung, Deputy Chairman of Hong Kong IOD.
Excuse me, please. Thank you. Well, welcome back, everybody. I'm Edmund Leung, and with me are three very important speakers. Time is short, and afternoon sessions are always challenging, because by this time you think you've heard it all. But the advantage of this panel is that we have three extremely eloquent and experienced speakers, and hopefully we'll all learn from them. So without wasting too much of your time, I know time is pressing. We only got half an hour. I'm sure you read the CVs of these three speakers. We have Pullman Low here, Laurie, and Kent Wong. So without wasting any more of your time, I ask Pullman to go to the podium and do a presentation.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'm most honored to be sharing here, especially on topics of sustainability that are very close to my heart. So, in the past 3 years, I can't believe it's already been so long since we first got hit with COVID. I believe every single being on Earth has been affected. But the topic today is how we can actually survive and thrive through this pandemic. And what I want to say is we have always been trying to ask ourselves not just what what the government can do for us, but what we can do for Hong Kong people. So when asked, what is our strategy? I basically want to say that we always want to be answering to what the society needs and to be asking ourselves what we can actually do to help. So when the government expressed the need for a facility as a holding venue for travelers and guests coming into Hong Kong to where they can wait for their PCR results overnight, we offered to be the first holding facility. That was the Regal Kai Tak Hotel. And that was back in 2020. And when we also heard about the need for designated quarantine facilities and designated quarantine hotel for business travel for travelers coming back to Hong Kong, we also were the first to offer ourselves. And when Hong Kong was hit with the 5th outbreak, we became the first community isolation facility so that people who could not isolate themselves from their family members could actually stay and enjoy nutritionally balanced meals designed by nutritionists to hopefully help accelerate their recovery. So as you all know, Hong Kong was badly hit, and it's the worst time ever for the tourism industry. I would say we basically have never, ever came across such an unprecedented challenge. So we were forced to basically adapt and be as agile as possible. So we came up with some new market segments that we could serve, apart from the quarantine stays. For example, the Regal Riverside Hotel was the first to provide professional postpartum care service so that mothers could actually stay at our hotel, be taken care of by professional nurses, enjoy nutritionally balanced meals, and perhaps have some peace away from their mothers-in-law at our hotel. And we also offered staycation packages for those of us who are so desperate to have an experience when they cannot travel abroad. And of course, there's the long stay packages offering affordable but comfortable stay for local people. And we are also, as a group, always embracing sustainability at the core of our DNA. I myself have been vegetarian for 18 years. I'm an animal lover, and I always try to make vegetarian living more interesting. So we were actually the first hotel group to provide a very interesting, appealing green menu featuring Food 2.0. I myself am also very passionate about food tech. We invested in Beyond Meat, the first alternative protein company to go public, and also we were a seed investor in Green Common and also a number of cell-based companies because we believe that technology is really the way to accelerate the transition to a greener, more sustainable future, and to also solve a lot of the problems that we as a world are facing. Up to today, 9 million people die of hunger, and every 10 seconds a child dies from hunger. So if we can actually cut food wastage by a quarter and also try to go green every now and then, if only Hong Kong can cut our food waste by a quarter, these 9 million people do not have to die. And also just 1 kilo of chicken meat actually takes about over 3 kilos of crops to produce. So again, if we could just slightly eat a bit less meat, in fact, just follow the dietary guidelines of nutritionists, we as a city can actually cut our carbon emissions by over 40%. So together, we can actually make a difference. The second topic that I want to touch on is technology. What I want to emphasize is, again, even technological innovations have to come from the heart. We have to know exactly what needs we are trying to serve. So when we actually became the first hotel to offer rooms for sale on the internet back in 2000. We were basically listening to what our customers wanted back then. The same goes when we were the first to adopt mobile key access so that customers actually don't have to wait in line. The same for offering this a check-in kiosk and also in-room shopping through a TV. And now this year we are launching a new app that actually takes customer loyalty rewards and engagement to the next level by using AI and more data to actually really understand what our customers want so that we can offer a more personalized experience even before they check into our hotels. There will be an e-shop offering all our products and services, and also a lot of content, especially relating to wellness, so that we can engage with our customers throughout the customer journey. Metaverse, a lot of you might be wondering exactly what that is. To be honest, I myself don't know, but it is gonna really be affecting and transforming every facet of our lives. So we want always to be at the forefront. We want to be a pioneer and connect to the younger generations. So that's why we actually launched MetaGreen, which is the first green metropolis in the metaverse, and it's meant to be an ecosystem to foster collaboration among like-minded partners who care about the environment. So we have Hang Seng Bank as our retail banking partner. We have a number of retail partners such as Le Mills, City Super, Login. We have Harbor City joining us as players in the green sustainable shopping mall. Of course, there will be a sustainable hotel featuring, prop tech, showing us exactly what a net zero hotel will be like in the future. And also a digital art gallery featuring sustainable art. And also there will be a nonprofit MetaGreen Academy that will plant a seed of green environmental consciousness among our high school students, because education is what's going to change, what's going to drive and catalyze change for a better world.
Pullman, you may have to move a bit faster.
Okay, sorry. I was asked, so how do we actually diversify our business? So on top of our hotel business, in fact, we are already a conglomerate with multiple diverse business lines, ranging from hotel ownership to management to real estate to investments. So I've been always doing investments on behalf of our group. But I believe that this world actually is very big and complicated with many urgent problems for us to solve together collectively. And that's why I've launched an impact fund focusing on green tech, agriculture, food tech, and tech for social and financial inclusion. So what I've actually proven and find most encouraging is that in our portfolio, the companies that actually deliver impact outperform the rest of the portfolio. And in fact, each investment returns on people, on planet, and profit, and are aligned with the sustainable development goals. In terms of branding, we will be focusing on driving sustainability. We'll be making use of technology and hopefully contributing to the wellness of this earth and of all our customers. Thank you.
Thank you, Pullman. Thank you. Please sit down. Before we move to the next speaker for presentation, that's Laurie's turn, may I remind you that there is a poll that you could fill in. And for those who are not here, if they want to ask questions, please send them in. So may I ask Laurie to do your presentation? And 5 minutes, please.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon. And I want to thank you for the kind invitation to address you today. Leadership to survive and thrive in one of the most challenging eras I think that our planet has ever known. We know in Hong Kong, perhaps better than just about anywhere else in the planet, that we are living in a geopolitical era that is posing all sorts of challenges and complications to what it is that has otherwise been part and parcel of the very fabric of what makes this city special. We're living in an increasingly polarized world. We're seeing that there is a weaponization in many ways of what is Hong Kong's historic advantage, and that is that we are at the intersection of the East and the West. All of this means that there's less room for nuance, there's less room for compromise, and it means that we have to think very, very carefully about the political implications of just about everything that we do. I say this and you're thinking, well, hang on a minute here, he's from a university. I just want to share something a little bit about the Chinese University of Hong Kong. Our mission for the last 60 years, by very design, is 结合传统与现代，融汇中国与西方, to connect China and the world, to connect China and the West. And I'd argue that to desire to achieve that here in 2022, in the most geopolitically complicated time since the Cold War, makes our very purpose more challenging than it ever has been. But I also think that's what makes it exciting. Our Vice-Chancellor said a couple of years ago that the COVID-19 pandemic has been to the university sector, it's been like a tsunami. And so what has this meant for the university sector? It's meant that we have had to pull off 10 years of digital acceleration and digital transformation in the space of quite literally 10 days. And that's really quite profound if you think about the traditional approach that has otherwise dominated university education. I bet that just about all of you have been through a university education, and what you experienced was probably this, which was sitting in a lecture hall, which was going to tutorials and living with the physical estate and the physical presence of a university. And that has been shaken to its core over the last couple of years. And so what do we take with us from the last 3 years of the pandemic? Do we just snap back to normal? How do we adopt and how do we thrive in this very difficult environment? I touched on the geopolitical environment that we're living in at the moment at the outset of my remarks. And often the cliche with Hong Kong is that we are the world's window to China. And people say, well, you've come back to China for the last 25 years, China's developed so rapidly. Is Hong Kong really what it used to be in terms of a gateway to the motherland that it used to be? My answer in the context of universities is yes, it absolutely is, and uniquely so. Because for the last 3 years, the mainland has been closed to international students. Hong Kong, throughout the last 3 years of COVID-19, has been the only city in the entire country that has remained open to international students. Yes, students have to satisfy our quarantine requirements, but nonetheless, we are welcoming international students. They have to go through quarantine. We all hope and pray that that will stop as soon as possible. But the point I'm making is that at a time where the rest of the country has been completely closed to young people who are at the forefront of building people-to-people links and the very fabric of relationships between China and the rest of the world, Hong Kong has been the window for thousands of international students to have a taste of China throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. And I think that's something special, and I think it is something that is worth celebrating. What else will remain? What else have we learnt throughout COVID-19? 3 years ago, as our borders closed and we were all obsessed with controlling infections, our students could no longer have an international experience. Our students in Hong Kong could not get on an airplane and go to the US. They couldn't go to Japan. And pretty much, at least certainly at the outset of the pandemic, no one could really come here. And so we innovated and we thought about how do we bring international experiences online so that people can have an authentic taste of what the world around them looks and feels like. And we've been doing that at scale. Thousands of international students have been doing online exchange programs. And you might say, well, surely once travel becomes possible again, surely once quarantine is removed, let's go back to physical face-to-face exchanges. Yes, we will. But at the same time, that traditional model of international exchange, which is dependent on someone having the financial or the economic means to step on an aeroplane and travel to the other side of the world and have an experience, that has effectively isolated those that do not have the economic means to afford it. But suddenly, over the last 3 years, we've got a huge body of experience of how we can do this at scale. Yes, physical exchanges will always matter, but at the same time, we've discovered that through our pandemic experience, there is another way so that we can open up a world of international opportunity for people from right around the world that don't have the economic means to otherwise do so. I'll lastly say that as we talk about resilience and as we talk about preparing leaders for success, universities have a unique responsibility to be at the forefront of change. And that is tomorrow's leaders of the city, tomorrow's leaders of the motherland will be going through Hong Kong's institutions of higher learning. Therefore, in this era of unprecedented change, disruption, and geopolitical uncertainty, we have a responsibility like never before to teach our students the critical skills, digital literacy, so that they can spot fake news, media literacy, national security, national identity awareness and education, so that they can be responsible citizens. Whole person development, ladies and gentlemen, has been a hallmark of the CUHK experience since we were established in 1963. And I would argue that here, in 2022, 25 years after Hong Kong's return to the motherland, the whole concept of whole person development, the way in which we nurture socially responsible citizens that can make a contribution to here, the country, and further afield, has never been more important. And so that is why universities have a fundamental role to play in ensuring that we develop the leaders with the resilience and the success to succeed in the world of leadership for tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Laurie. Kent, it will be your turn now. Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Has been invited to share some of my view about the ESG sustainability strategy that we already implement in the recent years. First of all, I think gives you a little bit introduction about Chow Tai Fook. Actually, we are a household jewelry brand grown from Hong Kong. I like the theme this year, which is from resilience to sustainability. I think we are resilient in this difficult year, especially in the past 3 years that COVID and also a lot of uncertainties arise. But we are resilient because we have 93 years history. We inherit excellent cultures and comradeship. I think that is a very important treasure. And we already built a good reputation, but most important, we have a system that help us to pass through difficult time. I think today we are a company which is a vertical integrated jewelry business model. That means we start from upstream, sourcing, design, manufacturing, and then retailing. And then now today we are not only come across China, mainland Hong Kong, but other countries overseas. So even though we are continue to make stride towards our centennial goal. Actually, 93-year history, though another 7 years, again, we would celebrate our 100-year celebration. But we continue to invest into people, and also more important is the betterment of the planet. Despite the turbulence in the global market and challenged by pandemic, environmental and also geographical concerns, but we are still optimistic in the future, and we will promise to continue invest, especially in in the future. So we applied already a few years ago what we call a dual force strategy and drive our sustainable development. So what is dual force strategy? I think the foundation of the execution of dual force strategy is our 4 ESG guiding principles, which is namely craftsmanship, obligations, delight, and environment, which aligned with the United Nations SDG standard. Matching together with the operational philosophy of our company, nurturing breast with sincerity and now and forever, we integrate the 4 guiding principles into our business operation. I think it's not only a slogan, it should be a execution mode tap into our daily operation. So we can enable our bespoke experience for stakeholder, food, jewelry, and service as it will matching with our expression of a core value of sincerity and eternity. So I think I would like to show you a video that help you understand what we have done to the betterment of our employees. Okay, just a minute. Okay, which is a so exciting new project that we redesign our financial and IT department. So we ran it like a co-working space, so that I think we changed the environment. We believe that the change of environment can improve the attitude. They change the attitude, and actually ultimately we can improve the efficiency and especially creativity through team working. So I think which is one of the project that we launched a few months ago, and the result is really good. And then I think not only we can create new idea, but I think we can retain, the talent or attract new talents. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Ken. So having listened to these inspiring presentations from our 3 speakers, I think you would allow me now to ask some questions. The first question I would like to ask is a question to all 3 of you. COVID-19 is right on our mind these days, and I would like to understand what was the first thing on your mind when you're aware of the threat of COVID-19 to your business, in Laura's case, it's not in your business, but in university. And in retrospect, was your gut feeling and reaction accurate and useful in forming your survive and thrive strategy of this subject? Who would like to start first? Lady first, Bowman.
So I remember the last time we were as shocked was actually back in 2003 when Hong Kong was hit by SARS, but that was much shorter. So when COVID-19 hit us in 2019, to be honest, at the beginning, we were still hopeful that it would go away in months, right? And I don't think any one of us expected, a COVID-19 pandemic to last until 2022 and possibly even further. So to put things in perspective, we used to welcome 68 million visitors a year. And last year we had 90,000. So you could imagine just what a plunge that was in terms of visitor arrivals. As I mentioned just now, when we had to weather through this pandemic, I think, of course, we have to think about, how to survive as a business. But more importantly, we also were thinking, we have enjoyed, support from visitors all along. So what can we do give back to society? What role could we play? And that is why we were actually the first to say yes when the government needed us to be a holding facility. Again, when the government needed facilities for quarantine travelers, for even domestic helpers coming into Hong Kong, we were the first to say yes to offer our facilities. And to date, we actually have 12 hotels offering quarantine services. And actually, when the outbreak exploded back in May, we also, in February, there were also some resistance, of course, throughout our group, whether or not we should actually be almost serving like hospitals when the government wanted community isolation facilities. And I have to applaud each and every one of our employees for basically serving as heroes, because of their willingness to sacrifice and their willingness to serve. We have been able to help a lot of people, contain the spread of the pandemic within their household by offering them a comfortable and safe place to stay.
Thank you, Pullman. That was the most noble deed of yourselves and your company. What about Kent? You seem to be moving, yes.
Yeah, thank you. I think the pandemic is a very good lesson to all my team. I remember that 2020, our business in mainland China has been locked down 100% because of, at the time, Wuhan, the first wave. So I think we learn from that, which is no matter the frontline guy, some like people, or the admin guy, or finance guy, we have to work together so that first thing we do is we set up a task force, and then we set up a epidemic command center. First thing we do is we surveillance, okay? Say what we need to support to the front line. I think so that important thing is that how we integrate the resource, like masks or sterilizing material to support the people need, not only our staff, but also the society that they need. And second, I think we check our balance sheet, how much cash we have, how long we can sustain. Right, that is important, okay? And third, that we set up a communication, a town hall to the senior management that we tell the truth, that the company financially safe and financial capability to sustain, the people's living. So that we roll out a very important information that we, a company, commit and we are capable to work together with all the staff come across this difficult time. For example, we immediately launch a special subsidies because as you know that the frontline sales associate, they lost a lot of income because of lockdown. So how they can provide their living standard so that we give a special allowance to support the living. So all these kind of information are important. Yeah.
Thank you, Ken. Laurie, quick response.
Thank you. So when the pandemic first hit, I was actually in Australia, and I was running a controlled entity that was owned by my then university, and it was an international student business, and 100% of our revenue came from international students. And so for us, it was a question of survival. And we had to work with our board, we had to work with the University Council. In fact, the second positive case that the state of New South Wales, and Sydney's the capital of New South Wales, was a student of ours on the last flight out of Wuhan before it went into lockdown. So for us, it was a case of a PR crisis initially, but then as the borders closed for a business that was 100% dependent on international students coming to Australia and paying us fees, it became one of dire survival, and we had to take the entire business online. We had to lock down. We had to think about how we would run a leaner and a simpler organization so that we could be a viable business. And it was all about building a bridge so that we could come through to the other side. And although I'm no longer there, the business is active, it's operating, it's simpler, it's leaner, and it's a going concern that's viable. But just lastly, I think that for universities, and this applies to us at CUHK, the pandemic has been a lesson for us in how we think about risk management, but not just risk management in terms of actually operationalizing it right across the organization so that it's not just something that sits on a matrix that goes to council meetings or the equivalent of a company board, but how do we live and breathe risk management, emergency response and mitigation across all levels of the organization. And the pandemic has been a wake-up call for all of us, and I think that that's a really important lesson.
Thank you, Laurie. You can see that even with the university, the survival to them is like running a successful business. Very important. Now I'm going to ask three of you a rather controversial question, and it's current as well. We are all aware that the government is seriously thinking of reopening the border and helping us to travel, et cetera. But looking back, do you view the stringent lockdown procedures instituted in the last 3 years, were they appropriate and were they beneficial to Hong Kong as a whole? Or do you see some negative thoughts on it? Who would like to start first? Ken.
Okay. Absolutely. I think at the very beginning of the pandemic, I think we don't know what's happened with this virus. So we have to approach a more safety kind of a measures. I think that is, we understand, but that means people's care, people's safety, people's health first. But as we learn, the past 2 to 3 years, we learned how to live with this kind of virus, how to prevent invention. I think it's time for us to think about the balancing between safety and also economic activities. So that is my idea.
Thank you. Laurie?
It's a really good question, and it's one I think about a lot with family all around the world and spending time in the mainland throughout COVID-19 and now being in Hong Kong. I think that what we can demonstrate here is that we have a respect for human life, and our vaccination track record has been mixed, but fundamentally we have a balance to strike between public health and ensuring that we're open and that we can sustain our economic activity. And the idea that, I tell my family that when I go downstairs to throw the rubbish out, I wear a mask, and they think I'm crazy. But then you look at the other extreme, which is the late Queen's funeral, and you were hard-pressed to find anyone wearing a mask other than the Chinese Vice President Wang Qishan. And I think that it's basic common courtesy and respect for others that this is the type of behavior that we simply need to adopt. We're living in a highly urban environment, and it's not just Hong Kong, but you look at population densities in cities all around the world, and the way that pathogens can spread, and actually what we've learned through COVID is that there are some basic things that you can do to keep others safe, and it's respect for your own health, it's respect for others, and I think that for Hong Kong it will always be a tricky balance, this idea that we are a special administrative region, and knowing that we're an international financial center and we need to be open, but also let's not forget that we complain now about 3+4, et cetera, but actually we're ahead of the rest of the country, and And so we, I think that we have a pioneering role to play in terms of potentially being at the forefront of the rest of the country in terms of opening up. But I think that as long as we get that balance right between public health and being open, sure, has any country or any region in the world been perfect in terms of its pandemic response? Absolutely not. But I think that, as we've learned how to deal with this virus, I think that we've learned a lot in terms of, that delicate balancing act.
Thank you, Laurie. Pullman, what's your wise views on it?
I fully agree with what has been shared. Basically, I think it's very important that we continue to adapt our strategy based on evidence. I think, we have gone through this for already 3 years, so we should be in a better position to react and more proactively shape our strategy to strike, an optimal balance. And I fully concur that, Hong Kong can, in fact, be at the forefront. We don't necessarily have to follow others. We are in a very unique position, and there's a lot that we can do, actually, for China in terms of, offering ourselves as a base for reverse quarantine, for example, and also to adopt the latest technologies to hopefully strike, again, a balance between control and also opening up to the world. And I think, it's actually a matter of survival for Hong Kong. I've been traveling to Singapore a few times. Just this month alone, I think Singapore has enjoyed an influx of visitors because of what Hong Kong has had to give up. A lot of large-scale global conferences, summits have moved there because of their relaxed measures. So I think, it's really time for Hong Kong to really do something, but without, of course, sacrificing the welfare of the larger population. I think with better communication between the government and the people, with more confidence, and again, with more proactive strategy based on evidence, we should be able to strike a better balance and hopefully regain our status as Asia's world city.
Thank you, Pullman. They say that when you're having fun, time flies. Unfortunately, we're pressed for time, so I have to rush a bit, and I appreciate that you give us short and succinct answers. Pullman, your turn again. Some experts say that technology can always help to grow business. Do you agree with this statement, and can you share some examples with us? In particular, I got a question here from Sarah about board members staying in hotel. Do you choose your clients who stays in the hotel?
Well, first of all, I think we live in an era where we cannot survive without technology. I think most of us would agree that our mobile phone is more important than our wallet or anything else. We would feel completely naked without going. So, back a decade ago, there would be a department called digital marketing, for example. Now I think there's no need to differentiate because basically all forms of marketing is digital in some form. So basically, technology has to be embraced, and there are many ways that it could actually help. For example, I mentioned sustainability. There are a lot of prop tech inventions, smart energy saving management systems that can actually make our hotels greener. That's why we managed to actually launch the first carbon neutral hotel back in 2010 before ESG became so popular. And since then, we have also embraced other inventions to enhance the customer experience, including mobile key access, check-in kiosks, also a lot of services just at your fingertip by using our app. And again, I think with a lot of technology inventions, we can actually help accelerate the transition to a net zero while driving more at the bottom line.
Thank you, Pullman. Rushing through, Laurie, universities in Hong Kong have a role to educate students in preparing for their future career. May I ask if you have any views towards educating students to prepare for the changing economy? And can you share with us any successful examples to equip them for the future?
Sure, thank you. As I said in my presentation, we have a responsibility to think differently about this. And we hear a lot about the future of work. But actually, what the last few years has taught all of us is that we need to stop talking about the future of work. We need to think about the now of work. But for a university where you're putting a student through a 4-year undergraduate degree, well, when she or he starts and when they finish, then how are you going to guarantee that everything they've learned in those 4 years is going to be relevant to an employer by the time they graduate? And so universities need to work in partnership with industry throughout their degrees so that industry is providing students with mentoring, with support, but also advising the university on curriculum so that by the time students complete, what they've actually learned throughout their time is relevant so that it can power the economy of tomorrow. And at CUHK, we've launched recently Hong Kong's first university-level cooperative education program whereby we scaffold credit-bearing, full-time, and well-paid work placements for students in the penultimate and last year of their degrees. We've had 75 industry partners sign up already. We've got 200 students going through the program in the first intake. We want to scale this up so that students can actually get real industry experience while they're learning, and we can provide them with the soft skills, with the career advice, make sure that students are presentable, make sure, but most importantly, that industry is part and parcel of the university experience. And I think that needs to be the future because the world is changing so quickly, we have a responsibility to do that to make sure that our graduates are employable and that our economy is competitive.
Thank you, Laurie. That's sharp and nice. Kent, I note that Chow Tai Fook is unique in the traditional gold and jewelry business in the application of advanced production technology. We saw some of them in the movie, in your video. Can you share with us your success and your reason for going into research and application in these areas?
I think we have to safeguard our tradition, like craftsmanship, Chinese culture. For example, recently in China especially, the young people, they are so admired to Chinese story, okay, what we call 国潮, okay. This is, I think we have abundant kind of Chinese culture in the 1,000 years of history. So that is one thing that's important. And another thing, I think, because it's also a state strategy. As you know that the China government, in order to boost the economy, I think domestic consumption, which is one of the big topic, especially when travel restrictions still apply today. So I think that is something we ride on this train, you know, not only the traditionally gold is only a very old style kind of spending, but we bring in new marketing strategy, like we communicate with the young people through Douyin, okay, TikTok, or 小紅書, or little web pocket, that it can build the train, you know, through the environment. So that I think how we in use of innovation and technology is important. Not only we safeguard our tradition.
Thank you, Kent. I could go on asking questions and entertain all of you, but unfortunately, I think time is up. So I'm going to cut it short, and I apologize to our panel speakers who have done a lot of preparation, and I apologize to the audience who didn't have time to ask questions. But before I close, I think it's important we show the poll. So everybody agrees that business transformation is most important in times of striving and thriving, followed by risk management, technology, ESG, and I'm afraid diversity comes last, which is interesting. So that's food for thought for you. So I'm going to close this session by thanking all of our eloquent speakers and with a small token of HKIOD. Because you're very good, you helped me to thank them.